In 2024, Robert Jewell and his client applied to rezone this 2.6-acre parcel in Ridgefield to allow a small subdivision. The town said no. What happened next wasn't a compromise. It was a counterpunch. Jewell returned with an 830G pre-application, a dense, multi-unit affordable housing proposal designed not to be built, but to send a message. This wasn't planning. It was pressure, a phantom filing, weaponizing the law to punish the town for saying no. In this clip, you'll hear Jewell himself admit there was no intent to develop what was proposed.
So we jump to number 3.2, which is application MISC is in miscellaneous -24-10. This is a pre-submission concept application for multifamily development under 8-30G at 58 Prospect Ridge and 62 East Ridge. The owner of the property is Thomas Montanari. It's represented by Mr. Robert Jewell.
Can we pull up the picture of this behemoth of a development? The applicant has no intent to build this. The applicant does not want to build this. The applicant never wanted to build this. The applicant wants 4 houses on his 1.6-acre lot. He came to you with a zone change that you were uncomfortable with, and you had discussions. After we closed the public hearing, we closed the public hearing on the understanding that you folks were going to make some revisions to the regulations and talk to your council and send some revisions back and forth and discuss it and then vote on it, and none of that happened. We came to the next meeting. We did not show up at the next meeting, in fact, because we knew that those revisions had not passed between the commission members, and we were sure that you were not going to vote, but you summarily voted to deny the application. We still don't understand how that happened. You kept telling us that 830G we were using as a threat. As I said, we never used it as a threat. We used it to tell you that there were options here. And that's how things work in Connecticut with 830G. If you don't want to build an 830G, you go to the commission and ask to build something different. In this case, my client asked to build 4 units. He wants to build those 4 units. Can we find a way to get those 4 units built going forward so we don't have to look at something like this? Keeping in mind that he came to you folks in August of 2023 with this exact plan on a pre-submission concept and got a favorable recommendation and discussion, went away for a year, got wetlands approval, finalized the designs, came back in, and the application was summarily denied. We would like to find a way to have those 4 units approved, and we'll leave you with that question. We can come back in a couple of weeks if you guys think about it and get any ideas. Thank you.
You might, Mr. Jewell, you might get some feedback right now,
sure,
if you're open to it.
Yep.
I'm looking at commissioners to see if anybody wants to jump, but I'll give an attempt. We'll see if the commissioners agree with me. I think that the answer is something is possible. I think that the prior application that you're referring to, I think the flaw in that series of applications, I guess is the better way to say it, it wasn't 1 application, it was 3. I think that the critical flaw in that series of applications was in the regulation amendment and the rezone of step 1 and step 2, more than the specific development that was being proposed. I'm not saying the specific development is perfect, but I think your fatal flaw in the series that need to happen is that I think the regulation amendment was drafted. It hurts me almost to say this to you because I really respect you as a lawyer, but I think that it was not drafted well enough, close enough to the finish line. And yes, we as a group kind of said, let's try to redraft and let's try to get this to the finish line. I just think it was so far from the goal line that this is my view, and the commissioners can tell me if they say otherwise. I think that there was too much of a lift to get it to the right spot. And also, secondly, and I'll let you respond, on the rezone, the thought around what parcels should it impact and how does it fit with the adjacent parcels and things like that. There were bigger questions with that. And it hurts me almost to say it to you because I respect you. I just don't think that part of the 3 applications, those pieces were not packaged well enough to get you over the finish line. And I welcome you to try again.
Sure. Well, are you going to tell us that let's try again and spend $150,000 in a year, and just to deny it again?
No.
And again, just to clarify, that
was
was an extant regulation, and I submitted it as an extant regulation, and then you asked me to make changes to it. And then you said you didn't like the changes.
Right.
And then we came to you with a corner, a nice little zone like we did on the MSDD down on Main Street. And then you said, why don't you make it apply only to those 2 properties? And we did that. And then you denied it, and now you're telling me you didn't like the regulation because I modified them in a way that you asked me to.
No, that's not what I said. I said, I'm sorry.
That's
Let me
pretty much what I
clarify.
said.
Actually, I think that the commission, again, other commissioners can jump in if I'm.
Well, yeah, I just
not-
wanted to mention, just for the record, we didn't ask for you to minimize the zone. I think you had some communications with the Board of Selectmen, and you took
Yes, sir.
certain properties off of it. We never said to shrink it.
No, I will go to the record and
that.
find where you guys asked me to do that. You said, why don't you just make it apply to 1 lot?
No.
And we left it on 2.
No, in fact, I'm on the record stating that one of the issues, the project itself, I'm just talking about the regulation now. The project, it's a lovely drawing, but without getting into the merits of it, the issue, I'm on the record stating that when we denied that it was constricted too much to apply to basically just your property.
Sure.
Okay? Whereas the other part, the initial regulation was more expansive.
Yes.
Okay, and I think that's what a zoning change is better suited for. It needs to include, a neighborhood, not just one property.
So if we bring
Otherwise,
it back
everyone's
to the
going to say.
neighborhood, you'd be fine with it.
Well,
Not necessarily.
You need to put the 2 together, right? There's how the adjacent parcels are impacted, which is sort of the neighborhood conversation you're having. But there's also, what does the actual regulation amendment itself say? And not to relitigate too much, but we had a pretty deep conversation issue in the hearings about the protection of existing
Yes.
structures, historic preservation, et cetera.
Of which,
And-
there's none that apply to the property now.
Right, and so I think, that's just one example. I'm not trying to make it all about that, but there are things that that some people, maybe not all, again, not everybody's the same, there are things that people assumed would be part of the reg amendment that then were not, and or were not sufficiently enough there, and we had to beef up. And then there was the zones, and I think we're just unpacking a lot of things
Okay.
on the table. And I think that it was a lot more to unpack than certainly the commission expected, maybe than you expected too, honestly. So I'm not trying to, again, I'm trying to be sensitive to.
Well, it took us
But I just
3
think that your failure on that, and again, I don't want to say it's your failure.
Oh,
the
it's
failure.
certainly
The
my
failure
failure,
on the
yeah.
application was just that, it was mainly that it wasn't packaged really well on the reg amendment and the rezone. And I think that there is a possibility for the particular project that you're talking about. It's how does it get packaged in a reg amendment and a rezone
Well,
that makes sense? And I don't know.
I have a different perspective.
Yeah, there's one that's
So
like-
of course, you guys are talking about legal stuff, I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about big picture. Big picture, you are forcing us with 0 option to accept more density right there along that strip of houses and opening the door to even more density in the future right there. I personally don't believe there should be density right there. So I feel strongly like, no, I don't believe that we should put density in our town right there. And I know that is simply my opinion. All right, Bob, so we either do that, which you've already said, we have no desire to do, we're not going to do it, so you're forcing us back to option 1, and we must accept it. And that is our only option in your point of view. And what if our option is just nothing, sell your house?
And then, look at that.
Go for it.
Oh,
But also, Mr. Jewell, I mean, again, I think, I respect you a lot, but honestly, it's also, just like you chastised us about the moratorium, it's irresponsible of you to put this out. And then come to your pre-submission application and start with the applicant doesn't want to do this, never wanted to, doesn't want to still. So this was a publicity stunt, is what I just...
Not a publicity stunt. It's showing
But
you what can be
us-
done.
Well, it's either publicity stunt or it was just an intimidation.
No, he's
One
going
or
to
the
sell
other.
the property, and then something like that will happen.
Go for it,
He
sell the
never
property.
wanted to do it.
But this pre-submission, this conversation that we're having right now could happen without even you publish this. You could have come to the commission and or through staff and said, what happened there? And let's talk about having an understanding around what went wrong and how to
That's what we're
correct it.
doing now.
Right. But you didn't need to put this application in that image and to have that conversation.
The words didn't work, so we used a picture.
But it's kind of a bully.
The picture, what I'm saying to you is, sir, that the picture was not necessary. Anytime you wanted, whether it be here in the meeting or through staff, 2 days after the denial, you could have asked, what happened? And I think, at least from me, you would have gotten substantially the same thing that I just said to you in the public meeting. I would have said to you 2 days after the denial, if you had just asked through staff or come to the next meeting and ask. It was unnecessary to do this.
It was absolutely necessary,
No, it,
in our opinion.
well, I understand, but I'm telling you, it was not. You would have gotten the same exact thing. And so, again, I say to you and your client, I think that there may be a pathway. I can't guarantee you, of course, there's not 9 people, and we're not all unanimous all the time, and we might not be. But I think if you make a better attempt at coming back with a more thoughtful reg amendment and rezone, I think that there's a path.
Sounds like a plan.
But the investment needs to be put in those 2 elements. And, also you are welcome to work with staff or through staff to have better alignment on that. I mean, we had one pre-submission meeting like this on the initial project where we talked mostly about the project itself, and just a little bit you made a reference that you thought we could use the MSDD in some form. You mentioned that, but we had no further conversation.
No, we actually submitted the regulation and a map. Yeah. There was a complete pre-application, and it was a preview of the actual application.
Well, as you've said on the record in public meeting, you said it over there, so that's why I'm pointing over there. You said when you're standing there, let's have more of those. Let's have more in
Without
advance. And we'll organize them correctly with different departments as you think is appropriate. I think we're aligned on that. And you have, on behalf of the commission, one thing I can do is commit that staff and the commission will invest the time to make sure that we do the pre-work so that we understand each other a little bit better.
Perfect.
Right? And the post-work, if you need the post-mortem.
Do you have anything you want to add?
Let's hire a town planner to help you guys out.
Perfect.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.